Hey everyone, so the title of this video probably has Flat Earth in it somewhere, and that's not clickbait, it is accurate, but it also isn't really accurate because, first, I'm not going to be arguing about whether the Earth is flat or a globe, and secondly, because this guy isn't actually a flat earther. Or, well, he sort of is, but also not. What he actually believes in is the bigger Earth. Not to be confused with Bigger Luke, the slightly larger Luke Skywalker who definitely appears in some scenes in Star Wars. Google that if you still believe what they tell you about Luke. Anyway, unlike Bigger Luke, Bigger Earth is not just a couple centimeters taller than the normal Earth, but in fact it's so huge that if Bigger Earth was the moon, the Earth as we know it would only be one small crater on it, which is literally what it is because the moon is just a reflection of Bigger Earth in a spherical mirror that surrounds Bigger Earth. And normal Earth is the flat, circular bottom of a crater called Sulpicius Gallus M, which we see in the reflection of Bigger Earth, i.e. the moon. Oh, and also the lost city of Atlantis on Bigger Earth is reflected as a moon crater called Linnae. Like the moon, the stars are also a reflection of Bigger Earth. In that reflection, normal Earth is reflected as the star Sirius, and Atlantis is reflected as the planet Saturn.
We have a double reflection. The moon is the total image, and the stars are a closer, detailed reflection.
I guess the fact that Saturn moves around like crazy relative to Sirius, despite being a stationary crater on Bigger Earth, isn't a problem because reasons? Now, I've already made a whole video about the mirror moon, so take a look at that one if, after watching this video, you still haven't fulfilled your forehead bruising quota for the day. I didn't touch on the idea that the stars are also a reflection of Bigger Earth, because he hadn't come up with that idea yet at the time. It might be fun to look at that more closely sometime, but not right now. No, this time we're talking about the evidence that Disneyland was designed as a map of Sulpicius Gallus M, otherwise known as Sirius, otherwise known as Earth. And in case you haven't figured it out by now, this is not low-hanging fruit. This is ground fruit. So just roll with it. Have some fun. Take it away, XX Wimp Slayer Belgicus XX of Estonia.
In this video, I will present you the holy grail of the Flat Earth movement. And no, it's not the United Nations map.
I'm guessing most people who would click on a Flat Earth video these days know what that's a reference to, but for those who don't, I'll quickly explain. The UN logo depicts the globe, projected into 2 dimensions via azimuthal equidistant projection, centered on the North Pole and with a distance from that center of something like 17,000 kilometers, which is just enough to show all the continents with significant permanent populations while avoiding an ugly ring of stretched Antarctic around the outside. The fact that this is a projection of a 3D globe into 2D space is why the northern landmasses appear so cramped, while the southern ones are so badly stretched, making Australia wider than Russia and Argentina the size of Canada. The projection is accurate in the way any projection is accurate, but no more inherently accurate than any other projection. And there's absolutely nothing special about it being centered on the North Pole or having this radius. The globe can be projected this way from any point to any distance, or for that matter using any of the multitude of other projections that have been developed for various purposes. And what they have in common is they're all equally accurate representations of a spherical planet. I don't mean equally accurate in the sense that every property of the globe is depicted equally accurately. For example, this projection preserves the correct direction and distance of places from the center point, while another projection might preserve some other property, like how a Mollweide projection preserves area, or your typical classroom Mercator projection preserves the constant direction between points. So what I mean by equally accurate is that they're all wrong, and they're also all right. They just vary in which ways they're wrong and which ways they're right based on utility. But Flat Earthers seem to love this one in particular, apparently because they think it shows that the UN actually believes the Earth is flat and is hiding it in plain sight to, I guess, mock them while pretending Antarctica doesn't exist or something. And because some guy who believed the Earth was flat presented a similar projection, except with a longer radius, showing Antarctica as his idea of a useful map in 1892, which apparently makes it a flat Earth map first and foremost, as if they think that guy invented it, when in fact it had been in use for hundreds of years by that point. And I just realized I'm several minutes in here and I've only played like 10 seconds of Wimpslayer's 10-minute video. Great planning, Lodge.
One of the viewers of my videos was intrigued by the plus ultra explanation in my previous video. He mentioned the existence of a secret society called the Plus Ultra Society. So I examined this society with some surprising results. Plus Ultra is a secret society comprised of the greatest minds throughout history that created Tomorrowland. Their motto is Cras est noster, which means tomorrow is ours in Latin. It was founded in 1889 by Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Jules Verne and Gustave Eiffel. It went on to include other members such as Mark Twain, Ray Bradbury and Walt Disney.
If you're gonna read straight off a fan-written wiki page for a fictional Disney movie, could you at least read a little bit faster? Here, let me tell you some more stuff they don't want you to know about Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland is a special dimension in time and space that resembles a futuristic version of Earth. The dimension/area of distant planet that came to be known as Tomorrowland was first discovered in 1899 by Nikola Tesla and other plus-ultra scientists. There's even a photo of Tomorrowland. How handy! Oh, and of course, we can't forget this top-secret information. Welcome to the Tomorrowland Wikia, a database dedicated to providing accurate and up-to-date information about the Disney movie Tomorrowland. Wimp? No. Just no. I don't care if you're a flat earther, or even a mirror moon bigger earther, still just no. Things don't become true because they're in a Disney movie. Unless you also expect me to believe that Thanos snapped his fingers and destroyed half the life in the universe. And I should say to the viewers at this point that I'm still not completely sure if Wimpslayer here is genuine or not. Like, I know he's way out there, but I've seen so many absolutely moronic conspiracy theories being taken dead seriously by so many people at this point that it's just getting real hard to set off my Poe alarm. All I know is he gets a lot of approving and deeply paranoid responses in the comments of most of his videos, so even if he's just an amazing satirist, some people aren't getting the joke and they're believing it instead.
So I looked at some photos of that society, and the first photo that struck me was this photo. Ray Bradbury, in the middle, is working with some colleagues on a map.
So by looked at some photos of the Plus Ultra Society, you mean you looked at random pictures of people mentioned in this 2015 movie's fictional backstory then? Not photos of these people in the same room talking to each other, or any photos that in any way demonstrate that Tomorrowland was a documentary. Here we have a photo of Ray Bradbury discussing Epcot Center because he helped design its most recognizable structure, Spaceship Earth. And I think if you look, you're not going to find a photo like this of him in relation to any Disney park's Tomorrowland, because he, like most of the other Plus Ultra members from the movie, had nothing at all to do with Tomorrowland. Not the real one or the parallel dimension one from the movie.
Look at the form of the circle. It reminded me immediately of Sulpicius Gallus M. Look closely at the form of the water. Now, let's look again at the structure of the landscape.
Alright, you've got a somewhat circular crater with a raised lump inside off-center, with uneven heights at other places around the edges, and then around the outside it seems to slope mostly down away from the crater, except for a couple of raised ridges. Okay, got it.
Let's fill it with water.
So you want me to believe that water's just gonna stick to the side of that downward slope for no reason? I know a lot of flat earthers deny gravity, but even if you deny gravity, you've still got to acknowledge that things fall down on Earth, right? So, sorry, but if there was that much water around that crater, it's not gonna stay anywhere near the crater itself unless it's actually in the crater itself. It'd flow down the slope to somewhere flatter.
And put the buildings on.
Oh, I really like this picture because even though you drew this purely to suit your own purposes with no regard for reality, somehow it still doesn't match what you actually want. Look, you drew the buildings facing completely the wrong direction because you didn't draw the water kind of hooking back on itself there. By the way, if anyone's curious what this is, it's an early scale model of Epcot that was never built. Apparently we're just assuming that it's also a map of the area surrounding the Earth for some reason. Fair warning, there's going to be a lot of for some reason going on in this video.
This photo was taken in the 50s. We're now 60 years later. I think we are looking at the plans of the new world. They are colonizing the bigger Earth.
Or they make scale models before they build theme parks. Is that too out there? I don't want to sound like a kook. Okay, let me try to understand your claim here. The crater Sulpicius Gallus M is a reflection of the entire Earth as we know it, right? And this Epcot Center model is really a design to expand beyond our Earth-sized crater because it has a circle on it, and the crater is basically a circle. Alright, have it your way. Let's put the flat Earth map in the middle of that circle. That shows us the scale we're dealing with here. So what you're telling me is that Ray Bradbury and the Disney company were planning to build 20-something buildings, each the size of like Asia, around the edge of that crater, and then they were going to build 2 bridges as wide as Mexico, over to some towers as tall as the journey from Mexico to Malaysia is long, with a few buildings beyond that, which totaled together are about the size of 2 entire Earths. How exactly do you propose they were planning to build this? This wouldn't even be practical if they enslaved the entire population of the Earth. Were they also planning to enslave the reptoids and insectoids from the other craters? Watch the moon mirror video. Is that what we're supposed to believe here? Seems like an awful big stretch from a picture of 3 dudes chatting about a theme park design.
Now you know why every country on the planet is in financial debt.
Yeah, no kidding. This plan seems almost dumb enough to bankrupt the galaxy. And that's before you even think about any logistical problems. If every country in the world spent every penny it had, it still wouldn't do dick if they didn't actually have a way to get this done.
They are
Oh hey, a Tomorrowland marketing image. So you know there's a movie that Wikipage was talking about. Why did you pretend it was legitimate information about reality then?
They are using our money to build a world of their own.
Who is? The world you say they're building is big enough to house billions of people. So are there billions of people in on this conspiracy? Or are Tesla, Edison, Verne, Eiffel, Twain, Bradbury, and Disney just building themselves some really inconveniently oversized houses? And yeah, I'm just assuming you think these people are still alive, because that seems dumb enough.
So Ray Bradbury, science fiction author, was a good friend of Walt Disney. So when I had seen this photo, I thought, let's examine Disneyland from the air, and bingo! I immediately saw Sulpicius Gallus M.
Where? How? What? Do you mean just because they're both vaguely round, or?
Let's put the Antarctica map on it.
Wait, Disneyland here represents the crater, right? Or at least the flat Earth at the bottom of the crater? So why'd you just cover half of it up with Antarctica? That doesn't even match up with what you said in your other video about the mirror moon. In that one, you said the typical flat Earth nonsense, that Antarctica is a wall around the Earth.
We take the flat Earth and we zoom in into the moon. If this theory is correct, now we understand why Antarctica, the so-called Antarctica, the snow wall, is being militarized.
And I think it goes without saying to anyone who's actually looking at it that the map of Antarctica you put on Disneyland here shows no actual similarities to the park at all, especially before you flipped it and distorted it. Here's the original. How well does it actually fit? Not well at all, I'd say. Although I did make it fit a lot better than you did, but my way doesn't work for you because you still have to fit all the continents in the park next to it later on. And it means nothing anyway because I can do it with basically anything. I googled the world's biggest theme parks and did the same thing to some random non-Disney parks. So here's Flat Earth SeaWorld. Here's Flat Earth Universal Studios Japan. Here's Flat Earth Tivoli Gardens Copenhagen. I don't know what that is. Here's Flat Earth Gardaland, because I've heard my wife talk about that one before. And here's Flat Earth Canada's Wonderland, just for a bit of patriotism. And I think that's enough to make the point. Pattern seeking is a double-edged sword, Wimpslayer. It's a big part of what makes humans the smartest species on the planet, but unfortunately, it's also what makes us believe some really dumb stuff sometimes. And what does Disneyland have to do with any of this anyway? I know Disneyland has an attraction called Tomorrowland, but you said that Ray Bradbury and these evil Plus Ultra Society collaborators designed the trans-dimensional planet Tomorrowland from the movie, not Tomorrowland the section of Disneyland, and certainly not Disneyland itself. You then go on to show the Tokyo and Paris Disneylands, and again, nothing. Not a hint of similarity to Antarctica, not your butchered version and not the original. And even less similarity to a world map, azimuthal equidistant or otherwise, which it should have because Disneyland here is supposed to represent the entire crater Sulpicius Gallus M, which is Earth, which won't be clear yet to the audience, but it'll become more clear as we go forward. Flashing a picture of Antarctica on top of Disneyland more times doesn't make Disneyland more similar to Antarctica.
I was looking for the Tomorrowland festival in Belgium Boom, and I saw the same map
Now we're talking about the Tomorrowland Festival, which has absolutely no relation to the Disneyland feature or the Disney movie. In fact, when the Tomorrowland Festival went international and went to America, they had to rename it to Tomorrow World because Disney owns the naming rights for Tomorrowland and wouldn't let them use it. And the Tomorrowland Festival also sued Disney over the name of their movie Tomorrowland when Disney marketed it in Belgium, because the festival has the naming rights in Belgium. Are you telling me that despite the total lack of relationship of these things to one another, not only did Plus Ultra design the movies Tomorrowland in another dimension, and Tomorrowland at Disneyland, and Disneyland itself in multiple locations around the world, and a massively impractical and stupid Bigger Earth colonization project in the style of Epcot Center, but they also designed the random, what do they call stuff from Belgium again? Belgic? Belsh? Belgian, right. Sorry, Belgians, I don't exactly talk about your country much. Plus Ultra also designed this random Belgian provincial park that the Tomorrowland Dance Music Festival happened to be held at. Is this all Plus Ultra, or is the Belgian government also in on the conspiracy to do what again? Put maps of Antarctica randomly around? Well, if they are in on it, I gotta say they did a pretty awful job, because just like the Disneylands, this park has not even a superficial likeness to the map of Antarctica. Par for the course for the Belsh government, though, I guess.
Same map in Tomorrowland, Brazil?
Oh, come on, dude. Some squarey-ass field with a road in it and you just slap Antarctica on top like it means something? What's the road supposed to be, the Great Antarctic Highway? Remember, viewers, I don't claim to know this is not satire. In fact, I kinda half suspect it is. But some people do seem to take them seriously despite all that, so what can I say?
So I think the same people are behind this Tomorrowland festival and Disneyland.
Based on nothing. But even if you could show that every Disneyland and every Tomorrowland festival location is a complete and fully accurate map of Antarctica, that'd still say nothing about the people running the festival because they didn't build the locations. In both Belgium and Brazil, they just used existing parks.
I always found it very strange how some nobodies from Belgium suddenly make this gigantic festival and export this abroad. That's very strange. Who is paying all this?
The attendees, that's how festivals work. But more importantly, this festival was not just created out of thin air by some nobodies. Tomorrowland was started in 2005 by an entertainment company called ID&T, who've been organizing another dance festival called Mysteryland since 1993, among other events. So these aren't just some nobodies, they're experienced festival organizers with the money to back it up. And also, although it can happen, Tomorrowland wasn't exported abroad all of a sudden. Remember, this festival started in Belgium in 2005, and it wasn't until 2013 that the American version started, which stopped after 2015, and the Brazil version only ran from 2015 to 2016. And originally, in 2005 and 2006, the festival only had 10,000, 15,000 attendees. There weren't just suddenly 400,000 people attending this festival. Your characterization of this as being some nobodies suddenly making a gigantic festival and exporting it abroad is completely wrong. But your complete lie there is really just a side issue, because the main point is that advertising a big party in a park does not require financiers with enough money to build towers the size of Africa off the edge of the earth.
This festival is clearly created to promote chemical drugs and bring people in a state of hypnosis, just like Disneyland.
Really? Man, I've been to Disneyland. Can't believe I didn't notice all the drug pushing. 8-year-old me really missed out. Although Tomorrowland does have a zero-tolerance drug policy, so if that's the kind of drug pushing you're talking about, I guess I didn't miss much.
Let's return to the map of Disneyland America. What immediately struck me was the Tom Sawyer Island, but sadly enough, it only shows North and South America.
No, that island doesn't look like North and South America, because actually, Wimpslayer, if you reverse the image and distort it a bit, you'll find that in fact it shows the Russian Krai of Kamchatka. Or I guess there's an outside chance it's just a vague blob representing nothing, but we don't have to get fantastical here.
Now, first, let's look at some Disney attractions. Here you have the Matterhorn, and here a submarine base. That reminded me of some stories of Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and the story of Captain Nemo and his submarine, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It also reminded me of the German Nazi submarine base on Antarctica.
That's great for you that the submarine reminded you of submarines. Can you rephrase that in the form of an argument for me, please?
Let's compare the Antarctica map with the Disney map.
Haven't we already done that?
Looks identical.
If by identical you mean nothing alike. At Disneyland, there's a bit of water next to some fake rocky land, and I can only assume you think that represents this area specifically, which is just a whole lot of ice and snow on top of some rocks sloping down off the ridge towards the coast. Representing that with water makes absolutely no sense, even if that body of water happened to have the same shape from the air, which it doesn't. What does the water represent as opposed to the rocks, by the way? Nothing about Antarctica itself seems to warrant the distinction. And then you have the Matterhorn, just a standalone mountain some distance away from the water. No enormous ridges crossing the whole area, no hint that the submarine area is somehow part of the mountain, or the series of ridges the Matterhorn represents a high point of. Given the distance between them, there's not even a hint that the two of them are related. And of course you're ignoring absolutely everything else in the park. This is the sloppiest kind of pattern seeking, especially since to even start making this comparison in the first place, you had to completely change the orientation of the Antarctica map from the first time you showed it, meaning that either your earlier assertion of similarity or this one is automatically invalid.
True after all?
No. So what's this now? You have Antarctica in your crater, which is a reflection of the flat Earth, so now you really do think Antarctica takes up basically half the disk and is not actually an ice wall. Why is your worldview so inconsistent?
Then there must be a passage around to enter the base.
What base? And why does there have to be a path around to it? At first I thought it might just be that the paths at Disneyland are in a pattern like that, but they're not. Either way though, I'm not sure what it's supposed to mean. That there's a route over or around Antarctica? Well, there is. You just cross it. It's not that big of a deal, unless you plan to go full Sound of Music on it. Of course, now that Antarctica's not an ice wall around the crater, it doesn't really matter much anymore, because you can just go out the other way.
So, Disney is showing us the real Earth map. So, let's go back to the Tom Sawyer Island. I searched and found the first map of Tom Sawyer Island. And it looked kind of strange.
Yeah, it looks strangely even less like North and South America. I didn't think that was possible.
And I thought, this is a fantasy map.
Of course it's a fantasy map, but the question is it a fantasy map of a fantasy island or a fantasy flat Earth? That's the important question.
But last week, I looked again, and suddenly I saw a different map.
Oh. Might want to see a professional about that.
Let's look in detail.
Okay, Fort Davy Crockett, Moffett, Arizona, and you show some rundown old cabin. No clue what that's supposed to mean. You have a mic. Could you maybe use it to clarify stuff like this? A rowboat at a dock represents all of Britain, apparently. Makes perfect sense. And a dock with a bend in it is Scandinavia. The bend's not even at the correct angle, which would basically make the dock bend right back on itself, and the end of it would almost touch the shore, but what the hell. It's a thing that sticks out in the water, and it's bigger than the boat, so therefore it's gotta be Scandinavia. Some houses on the dock don't look like maps of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, and therefore they must be the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Random stuff along the shore represents well-known features of Asia, such as Scandinavia, nothing, nothing, and nothing. A lump of land near the Great Boat of Britain represents Africa because, India's represented by a tree on a hill near a watermill that, I don't know, probably represents Saudi Arabia or something. Oh, my mistake. India's just the very non-India shaped hill. Australia is the tree growing out of India. How could I not realize?
So, the whole world map is shown here.
Earlier you said the Tom Sawyer Island only shows North and South America, but now it shows all the land of the world, at least if you stretch, skew, and flip it however you feel like so you can cram it into a nonsensical configuration. Which even so, I noticed resulted in a massive piece in the middle there that you didn't fill in. I particularly like how you flip the Americas horizontally, making them obviously wrong even to a flat earther. And maybe you'll say, oh no, I did that because this is a map of the mirror image of the Earth and the Moon. Okay, but then all the continents would be flipped, not just North and South America. This is not how mirrors work. And after you flip them, you distorted them so badly that the US, Mexico, and Central America have been shriveled into basically nothing, and then you put them nowhere close to connecting up to South America. Another quirk here is that you have Africa separated from the Arabian Peninsula by the entirety of Europe, which makes global politics slightly confusing. Oh, and you just straight up deleted Greenland and Iceland. That's cold, man. With all those flaws, do I even have to bring up the obvious problems with making sense of flight times or time zones or anything? I don't think so.
But why are the Americas on their head? Why is everything connected to each other?
Because this is really dumb.
Australia fitted on the tree. What a coincidence.
Coincidence, as if it just happened to wind up there. How'd that happen? I only photoshopped the hell out of it to make it fit there.
But what is the centerpiece? I don't get it.
It's the centerpiece of the Tom Sawyer Island, because this is a map of the Tom Sawyer Island, not Earth.
Well, finally I thought, let's look for this form unsulpicious.
So after resizing, distorting, flipping, and generally screwing up the continents beyond recognition to make them fit the unmodified Tom Sawyer Island, now you're modifying the Tom Sawyer Island map itself to ensure either that your destroyed continents won't fit on your map anyway, or that you'll have to break them even more to force them to continue to fit. And all this just to make the map kind of fit some patches of light and noise. This is Nobel Prize-worthy stuff, Wimslayer.
And whoa. It fits.
Except it doesn't, because now that you've messed up the Sawyer Island map so bad, none of your continents fit anymore. You probably should have Photoshop abused those continents into shape along with the map if you wanted them to fit, but you didn't.
So you take our existing world map, you cut off the Americas, flip it horizontally and put it on its head, under Asia. But you have to skew because you have to hold account with perspective.
Oh really? That's an awful lot of perspective to jam into a top-down view of a crater taken from space, don't you think? And no amount of perspective is gonna put Quebec on the west coast and Alaska in the east. Wait, is that Greenland? So you decided it exists after all.
That is why Africa looks so small. It is probably the lowest point of our biosphere.
So to hold account with perspective, you not only have to skew things, you also have to shrink them. Meaning that the landmasses that look way too small here only look that way because they're so much deeper down in the crater. Well, that means Africa's gotta be on its own at the bottom of some massive pit to warrant that much resizing. And by massive, I mean thousands of miles deep. I hope I don't need to point out that it's not.
But what is this centerpiece?
I already told you what it is, there's no mystery here.
The only thing I can think of is that this part of Earth has been flooded, and we are looking at a 50-million-year-old map.
Closer than anything else you said in this video. It's a 62-year-old map. It was drawn in 1957 to represent an attraction that opened in 1956. It doesn't depict a 50-million-year-old anything. But hey, 6 orders of magnitude off isn't bad by your standards.
For the moment, I have no other explanation.
Really? Not even one? Dude, if I start seeing flat earthers passing this map around, I am gonna piss myself laughing. If you are actually just a Poe, that would be a glorious joke.
The most similar map I could find was this one of Martin Waldseemüller, 1507.
That's the most similar, huh? Well, considering that it looks completely different, despite you flashing red circles at random spots, I don't see why you bothered to mention it.
So now, I would like to thank Uncle Walt for this map. Oops, am I seeing someone else here? This is a building of the Disney Studios. Those dwarves, that's us. We are holding up the pyramid.
Never held up a pyramid a day in my life. I know, get a real job.
We are fat of the junk foods, poisonous water, chemtrails, polluted air. But the day we step aside, their pyramid will collapse.
But if they keep making us fat and poisoning us with those rainbows in our sprinklers, we're just gonna get weak and drop that pyramid sooner. You ever try to pick one of those things up? They're pretty heavy, or so I'm told. But if Adolf Disney is somehow involved in controlling us in all these different ways and trying to hide the truth, why would he make Disneyland a hint at the truth? Why would he leave any hints at the truth? Or are you saying that he was trying to send us a message about the real shape of the Earth and tell us that we're enslaved so we could free ourselves? We're right at the end here, so I guess I'm not gonna find out how this whole conspiracy fits together or who's on which side. Kinda wish you'd tell me, but you won't. Thanks a lot for the debunked blue balls, wimp.
Here is a little teaser for my next video about the real Control Masters.
Oh, is it Big Money Salvia?
You never live!
I always knew that guy was hiding something about the 9/11 rocket ships.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Thanks to my audience for watching too, I guess. Somewhere along the line there, I really started questioning if this was actually worth my time, but hopefully it was tolerable. If it was, give it a like and subscribe, or I don't know, whatever. You really shouldn't subscribe for this. Just so you know, I have a Patreon and a PayPal and a bunch of other ways to support me that you can find at support.logicked.com. The people on the screen right now are my $5 and up Patreon supporters, and they're pretty cool. I also have an email list in case my channel gets deleted or you don't get notified or stuff like that. And if you join that, I'll send you videos a day early because it's really helpful to me if you join. Guess that's it. I'm gonna go massage my brain. Thanks, bye.